Hey, welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jules. It's New Year season, and today I want to talk about the importance of reflecting. The practice of looking back and assessing and remembering and examining the past year that happened is so important to do before the next one arrives. So often it's easy to forget everything that's happened, but you miss out on so much if you don't reflect. So here is the why and the how to do it. Reflecting helps you to remember what you experienced. The best place to start with reflecting is gratitude. Go through 2023, this last year, and make a list and remember everything that you were grateful for that happened. Gratitude centers yourself. It reminds you of the good that was there, and it puts your lens into a positive light, which even if negative things happen, it's so important to be grateful for the positive things and even the hard things that you can now see your gratitude for. Gratitude is the most important place to start with reflecting because it will set the tone for what you remember about the past year. Some things will be easy to remember, like big things. You want to go through the past year and list the big things that happened. Maybe they're good things, maybe they're bad things, maybe they're just new things or changes. Like maybe you moved, or maybe you went on a trip, or got in a new relationship or out of a relationship, or you got all your hair cut off. Whatever it is, write down your big changes. Another part of reflection is writing down the highlights of your year and also the lows of your year. I feel like this is such a typical icebreaker. Writing down your highs and your lows, usually of the week or the day, but writing them down for your year is really important. And I think also when you think about when those things happened chronologically, you can also kind of chart how your year went, and it also makes it easier to see patterns. Sometimes patterns happen in our lives and we don't even realize it. Sometimes God is bringing us intentionally through patterns. Sometimes we are stuck in our own patterns. Sometimes we make patterns in our lives that we don't even realize are there. Sometimes other people are bringing us through patterns. By organizing things and examining what actually happened over the past year, you can see the patterns in your life that you might not have realized were there. Even if it's not like a life pattern, even if it's just for a year, or maybe it was for a season in the year, writing things down, remembering, noticing is so important. You never know what you can learn about yourself, about where you're at in life. Another thing to reflect on is, what were the things this year that felt out of your control, and what were the things that felt in your control, that you did well or you didn't do well. I think part of personal growth is being able to examine yourself and see where you're at and how you're doing, because perfection is never the goal and honestly never the outcome. So being able to sit down and ask yourself what you did well and what you didn't do well, and what you didn't do at all and just happened or someone else did. Being able to sit down and look at all of that is really good for personal growth, because even if you didn't feel like you did anything well, you did things better than you think. And even if a lot of things just went catastrophically wrong, it's still better to realize that and be able to go from there than to be in denial about it or not want to think about it or not want to face it, because then you don't have a starting point for where you're actually at. From a faith perspective, I think being able to examine the patterns and what felt out of your control is really good, because maybe those are the areas that God is growing you. Or maybe those are the areas that God is asking for control in your life, and maybe you were fighting him on it, and maybe you didn't realize that's what's happening. Or maybe you did realize and you didn't want to give it over. I think being able to see how you're doing and where you're at and what you're working on and what you need to work on that maybe you're not working on yet, but also the areas that God is asking you to work on, is so important and also so revealing. It's sort of a way to figure out what the right track is for life. Figuring out the lessons that you have learned and the lessons that you are learning is crucial in growing. If you know that God asked you to learn a certain lesson last year, or God took you through the process of learning a certain lesson last year, then you want to know what lesson that is so that you don't have to keep relearning it. You also want to know what lesson that is so that you can grow from it and apply the lesson that you learned to your life, instead of being stuck with the knowledge but not the application. Another way to reflect on the year is to weigh your emotions to reasons ratio. What were you acting on? Are you emotions driven? Are you reasons driven? Are you both? Have you figured out how to reconcile the two? Examining how you made your decisions for the year and where your thoughts are at, what you're dwelling on, what your thought process is, where your lens in life is formed in your mind, is so helpful in being able to reflect on the year that's passed, but also figure out how you're going to go forward into the next year. Think about your core values and have you lived those out this year? In what ways have you hit them? In what ways have you missed them? In what ways do you want to live them out better next year? What do you actually care about? And are you living in a way that reflects that? I think a lot of times we make goals, we have ideas, we think we know who we are, but then our actions don't always reflect those. And it's so important to take the time to see what you have been doing, good or bad, on point or missing the mark, and figure out how you can improve. Even if you've been doing great, even if this was a great year, even if you lived the way you wanted to, you hit all your mile markers, you're just on a roll, that's awesome. It's still good to reflect even if things are good. It's still good to reflect even if things are not great. Some things are inevitably out of our control, but reflection is the chance to look and see how you've been doing on what is in your control. When things go crazy, when unexpected things happen, it's so easy to feel like life is leading you instead of you are living your life. And reflection is a really powerful tool to help combat that, because if you think about these things now, once a year at least, sit down and really intentionally examine where you have been at the last year and where you are right now. That helps you going forward into the future, into the next year, to be able to figure out where you want to go because you can only go forward from the spot where you're at, not the spot where you wish you were, not the spot you think you are, but where you actually are standing. And it's so important to take the time to sit down and think on the past year, on yourself, on where you are, on what you've been through, so that you have a starting point for going forward. It's almost the new year, and to start the new year off right, you want to put in the prep work, and that's what this is. Thanks for hanging out today. I hope this video helped you. I will see you in the next one.